He smirked, handing me his phone. It's not cheating. It's just fun, he said. Don't be so dramatic. I didn't say a word. I just left. A year later, his startup was failing. And he came begging for a meeting with my company's new investment board. The shock on his face when I walked in as the head of acquisitions. My boyfriend, let's call him Alex, 24M, and I, 22F, have this weird dynamic. We've been together for 2 years, and for most of that time it's felt like we speak 2 different languages. He's an entrepreneur, so his brain is always going a million miles a minute, calculating risks and outcomes. I'm in sales, so I spend my whole day talking to people, navigating personalities. You'd think we'd have a lot to talk about, but when we get home it's mostly silence. The communication just isn't there. But the one place we've always connected, the one language we both understood perfectly, was physical. In that area we were solid. So about 2 months ago we were talking about our sex life, and how, since I'm bisexual, we'd never really explored that side of me together. The idea of a threesome came up. It wasn't a spontaneous, risky thought, it was a conversation. We sat on our couch and actually planned it like one of his business projects. What were the goals? What were the risks? How do we mitigate the risks? The discussion kept circling back to one thing: trust. Given our shaky communication, we both knew this could either be amazing or a complete disaster. That's when I laid down my one non-negotiable rule. Look, I remember saying, turning to face him, if we do this, I have to be aware of everything. Every single step. If you match with a girl, I want to see her profile. If you start texting her, I need to see the conversation. Same for pictures, everything. No private side chats. And I'll do the exact same for you. Total transparency. It's the only way I can feel safe enough to do this. He looked me right in the eye and nodded. Of course, he said. 100%. We're a team on this. And for a while we really were. We downloaded the apps together, sitting side by side in bed, swiping through profiles and laughing. It was fun. We eventually matched with a girl, Chloe, who we both thought was cool. We talked to her together from a shared account before inviting her over. The first time was great, low pressure, respectful, and genuinely hot. It went so well that we invited her back a second time. It felt like we had successfully unlocked a new level of our relationship. We had followed our rules, communicated in our own way, and it had paid off. After that, things with Chloe just naturally fizzled out. Life got busy, the novelty wore off, and we all just moved on. No drama, no mess. We still had the dating apps on our phones, but they went unopened. It felt like we had proven we could handle it, that our one big rule was strong enough to protect us. It was a foundation built on absolute honesty, and it felt unbreakable. For a few weeks, life went back to normal. The apps on our phones were just forgotten icons collecting digital dust. It felt like we'd scratched an itch, and now we were just us again. It was nice. The pressure was off, and we fell back into our usual, albeit quiet, routine. I honestly didn't think about it much. Then, about a week ago, we were making dinner. Alex was chopping vegetables while I was stirring a sauce. It was one of those rare, comfortable silences. Out of nowhere, he says, "Hey, I was thinking maybe we should start looking for someone new again." That was pretty fun. I paused, still stirring. I thought about work, how stressed and drained I'd been lately. The idea of bringing a new person into our space, the social energy it would require, felt exhausting. Yeah, it was, I said honestly. But to be perfectly honest, I'm just not really in the right headspace for that right now. Can we just hold off for a couple of weeks? Let me get through this rough patch at work. He glanced over, holding the knife still. Oh. Yeah, sure. No problem. He said it easily enough, and that was that. He went back to chopping and the topic was dropped. I felt a little flicker of relief. See, I thought. He gets it. He can listen. That feeling lasted for exactly 2 days. I was on the couch scrolling through my phone after a long day when he walked over from his desk. He had this huge, proud grin on his face, the one he gets when he closes a big deal. "Look who I matched with," he said, his voice full of excitement. He held his phone out to me, the screen lit up with a Tinder profile. My brain just kind of stalled for a second. I was trying to reconcile his proud expression with the conversation we'd had just 48 hours earlier. It was like it never happened. I looked at the screen. The girl was conventionally attractive, sure, but she just wasn't my type at all. Everything about her profile screamed a vibe that I just didn't connect with. I looked from the phone back to his expectant face. I had to make a choice, either pretend to be excited to avoid his disappointment or hold my ground. Alex, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Like I told you the other day, I'm really not in the mood for this right now. And to be honest, she isn't my type. The smile vanished from his face instantly. It was replaced by a look of pure unconcealed disappointment. He didn't argue or push back. He just lowered his phone, mumbled okay, and turned around. He walked back to his desk, put his headphones on, and that was it. The conversation was over. As I sat there on the couch watching his back, I had this sinking feeling. It wasn't just that he had ignored my request. It was that he saw my boundary as a temporary inconvenience. He just had to wait out. He hadn't heard my no, had heard try again later. And he was clearly annoyed that I hadn't changed my mind on his schedule. Another week went by. The awkwardness from that last conversation faded, and I started to think maybe he'd finally gotten the message. Maybe he understood. Then yesterday happened. I was sitting on the couch, same spot as before, and he came over just as casually as he had that last time. He had a slight, almost nervous smile on his face. Hey, he started, his voice weirdly upbeat. Remember the girl I showed you on Tinder last time? Well, we exchanged some hot texts and she just sent me pics. Do you want to see? My entire body went cold. I couldn't form a response, so I just stared at him. What was I supposed to say? He took my silence as a yes and held his phone out to me. My hand moved on autopilot as I took it from him. The screen was open to Snapchat. And there it was. It wasn't just a suggestive selfie, it was full-on B00Bs and more. A jolt went through me, a mix of shock and I don't even know what. My first instinct wasn't to scream at him. It was a desperate need for context. What was the conversation that led to this? What did he say? What did she say? I needed to see the words to understand how this happened. My thumb moved, closing the picture. I expected to see a long thread of messages, a whole history that would explain the last week. Instead, I saw a blank screen. The chat was completely empty. At the top of the conversation, a small gray notification read, "Messages are deleted after 24 hours. In that 1 second, everything clicked into place with horrifying clarity. This wasn't a sudden impulsive thing that had just happened. For over a week since the day I told him I wasn't interested in her, and wasn't in the mood, he had been talking to her. Every single day. He had been sending and receiving hot texts, building whatever this was all behind my back. He didn't just break our #1 rule of transparency, he used an app specifically designed to hide the evidence. He set it up so I could never see what was said. He wasn't confessing. He was presenting me with a trophy from a game I didn't even know he was playing, and he had burned the rulebook before I even got to see it. He knew for a fact I wasn't interested in this. He knew I needed a break. And he did it anyway, hiding his tracks every single day. The only reason he was showing me the pictures now was because they were the one thing he couldn't easily deny or hide. He stood there looking at me, waiting for a reaction. And all I could think was that this was a perfect, calculated betrayal disguised as an open conversation. So I have to ask you guys because my head is spinning and I can't think straight. He eventually showed me, but he deliberately hid the entire conversation that led up to it, breaking the biggest boundary we set. Do you consider this cheating?